Hey guys, I'm Jessie, and today we are going to talk about 5 of my favorite dragon fantasy books. Something that I absolutely love seeing in fantasy is a dragon. I am a sucker for any book that has dragons and dragon riding, and I love it. Like, it's very classic fantasy, but like so many books are putting these like great twists on the classic dragon fantasy, and I love to see it. Like, all you really have to tell me is there's dragons, and I'm like, okay, I'm here for it. Let's go for it. So I'm going to be sharing with you 5 books that I think that you should read if you also like dragon fantasy, because they're fantastic. And no, none of them are Game of Thrones, because I have not read that. Nor do I think I actually will. So there's that. The first one we're going to talk about is Dragon Mage. And this is a self-published book by M.L. Spencer. And it is a fantastic adult high epic fantasy book. Right now there is only 1 book out in the series, but there is another one coming out soon, and I absolutely can't wait. This book I read recently and absolutely fell in love. We're following 2 main characters, Marcus and Aram, and they are both like, I think about 12 when the book starts, and they are kind of trying to get out of their small town. Aram is our real main character, and he is described as odd by most of the people in his village. He's very looked down upon, and a lot of that comes because he is coded autistic, and I also think he is very well written as an autistic character, and I love seeing that he is an autistic main character who stays like true to himself and is not like a caricature, because we don't like to see that. We don't like when they try to use like neurodivergence in books and like it turns into a caricature. That is not the case here. It is so well done. But they end up trying to escape, and they're captured, and basically they are, you know, taken away because Aram is very, very powerful. He just doesn't know it. So what they want to do, the like evil government, is like drain him for his magic. And then they send Marcus off to this school where he like trains to basically be a guard for this evil government. Aram ends up escaping and going into the other world. So there's like 2 worlds in this book. And in this other world, he is loved and accepted, and he actually ends up being like their champion. And of course, there are dragons. There are your very traditional seeming dragons with your dragon bonds and the riders and all the things that you've come to kind of expect from a dragon book. And I absolutely love it. There is a very like minimal amount of romance. There's a whole lot of dragons, and there's some really great like family and friendships and like found family aspects to this book. It is not a YA. It is violent, and it is heartbreaking, and it is sad in some places, and it is happy in others, and I absolutely loved it. And it's self-published and done so well, and I cannot wait for the next book. So if you like dragons, pick up Dragon Mage by M.L. Spencer. Then we have another dragon book that I just recently read, and that is Bright Star by Erin Swan. I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about this, and while it is not like, oh my god, my favorite book, it was good. And this is a standalone YA fantasy where we follow an indentured servant who is kind of like passed around from house to house. She is indentured because her father was, and then he was a traitor, and basically she had to take on his contract. And there's, you know, dragon riders, but they are all men. And she ends up somehow disturbing the pairing ceremony, and this one dragon ends up not being paired to one of the boys that it was supposed to be paired to. She ends up kind of escaping at some point, joining up with a rebellion, and this dragon reappears. And this dragon was supposed to have bonded her, but didn't. So it's like they missed the timing for dragon bonding. It is fantastic. We also have a rough and gruff other dragon rider who is the leader of the rebellion. And y'all know this is like YA fantasy. There is gonna be a romance, and there definitely is. And honestly, I love the way they did the romance in this, because while I did have a couple of issues with it, it was a little insta-lovey. I appreciated that there was no like love triangle or will they, won't they. Like, it was just like pretty straightforward when it comes to the romance, the romantic leads, who's she gonna pick, stuff like that. And I also absolutely love the dragons in this book because they are very much their own characters. They speak in each other's heads and like the dragon bonds, and there's tons of dragon riders. So definitely pick this one up. I haven't really heard many people talk about it, and it's actually really good. Perfect? No, but fun. Then we have the Blaze Wrath games. This one was more pitched as like Quidditch with dragons, and I can kind of see that, but honestly, maybe not so much. This is a like contemporary fantasy, so it is set in our world, not in like a high magic world. And of course, there are dragons, and people pair with these dragons, and they compete in this sport called the Blaze Wrath games, which kind of is very similar to like Quidditch, but you ride dragons. And our main character actually ends up being the runner, so the only person not paired with a dragon for the Puerto Rican team. And she ends up like bonding with this team, and they're competing in this like international competition for Blaze Wrath. And you kind of end up finding out that there is so much more that goes into these games than there is at the surface level. There's so much more corruption in the government, and you know, you think you're just getting this like cool dragon sport, but really you're getting a whole lot more. So this is one, again, I don't see as many people talking about, but is really fun. Then we have the series that I just won't shut up about, and that is Fireborne by Rosario Munda. You can see a full review on my channel. I'll link it for you. But in this book, we have a Russian Revolution Anastasia gender-swapped retelling of sorts. We follow Lee, whose family was killed on Palace Day, and he ended up going and secretly living in an orphanage, not letting anyone know that he was royalty. And Annie, his best friend that he met at the orphanage as well, her family was killed by his family right before Palace Day. So they end up becoming best friends. They grow up together. They go to this like really prestigious school, and they become dragon riders. And in the first book, they are competing to be like the first dragon rider, like general person in charge of like the dragon rider kind of army. And I really, really love it because it really kind of flips the like whole revolution story on its head, in my opinion, because it's like, is this new regime that overthrew the obviously bad regime actually any better than the old regime? Or is it just like the same thing painted different colors? I love this. We have lots of dragons, and then in book 2 there are more dragons, and then in book 3 there's even more dragons, and it's just so good. I've talked about this book so many times that I'm sure people are sick of hearing about it, but I won't shut up about it. And the last book is more of a special mention, because it's a lot different than the rest of these dragon books on this list. There is no like dragon bonding or dragon riders or anything like that, but there is a big dragon, and that is Shadow of the Gods by Zhang Gwen. And honestly, we don't even really get the dragon until close to the end of this book. But this is like a dragon god that has been, they're trying to reawaken and free in order to take over the world again. We're basically following Orca as well as a couple other characters, but Orca's my favorite, so we're going to talk about her. Her kid is kidnapped, her husband is killed, and she's on a mission to find him. And in this world, people are gods touched, so there's different gods that take on the form of different animals. And they're kind of like outlawed and turned to thralls. So they have like the thrall collar, which basically like enslaves them to somebody else, and they're not allowed to like openly use their powers. Well, the big bad is actually the dragon, and in book 2 we get even more of that. So don't go into this one expecting like dragons like the rest of them where they like bond with people and are dragon riders. No. The dragon is actually kind of the big bad, but I really, really enjoyed it. And it's cool because the dragon kind of shapeshifts into human form too. Like all of the animal gods shapeshift into human form, which I love seeing. All right, well, those are all of my dragon book recommendations that are not Game of Thrones. If you have any dragon book recommendations for me, leave them down below. I would always want to check out more dragon books because they're one of my favorite things to read in fantasy. All right, well, thank you guys for hanging out with me. My name is Jessie, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.